This is Adam Taxin. It is Monday, August 13th, 2012, and this Thursday, August 16th, is the 35th anniversary. Wow, time flies. The 35th anniversary of the passing of the King, Elvis Presley. On the phone with me now from the Tampa-St. Pete area of Florida is Carolyn Cahoon-Hauser, author of the book, which came out in the last year, author of the book, How Bout a Date? Encounters with the Young Elvis. The book is available on Amazon, and there's a Facebook page that you can see about the book. It's just put in How Bout a Date, and there's no A in about it. It's How Bout a Date. You know, it's Elvis we're talking about. That's how we pronounce it. Full disclosure, Carolyn Cahoon-Hauser lived with her family next door to me and my family while I was growing up in Rose Valley, Pennsylvania, and I had no idea until the book came out in the last year that she had known Elvis. How do I set the stage here? I'm interviewing a mannerly Southern belle. Well, you can see a picture of Carolyn in 1955 from the cover of the book. It's up on the screen right now. How else do I present this while not being too direct? I guess it runs in the family. If I recall correctly, her oldest child, her daughter, did some modeling. Her youngest son was a few years ahead of me in high school, and let's just say that the females at Strathaven High School had him at the very top of their eye candy list. So I'll leave it at that. You can take a look at the picture of Carolyn when she was young and point out that she met Elvis because she, of all the enthusiastic fans in the Sheffield, Alabama audience, she was, for some reason, the one who caught his eye. Okay, I think I've set the stage there. Carolyn, welcome, and as we get familiar with your experiences getting to know Elvis back in Alabama, starting again in early August 1955, why don't you let us know about that particular night when you met him for the first time, and thanks for coming on with me.
Hi, Adam. Thank you for having me on. I wanted to tell you a little bit about my book that it was available in January this year, and I just wanted to give you a little background on what happened in the beginning. I met Elvis in 1955 on August 2nd. He came to my hometown in Sheffield, Alabama to do a concert, and he was there with Johnny Cash, I believe, at that time, and Webb Pierce and a few other people I can't recall right now. But I went to the concert with my friends. I was 17 at the time. We got there. We sat on the second row of the auditorium, which held about, I don't know, probably 400 or 500 people. And Elvis came out after a bit. He was not the opener, I don't recall. And he was, the place went crazy, of course. This was before he got to be the Elvis as we knew him later. It was the beginning where he was, he was just still a really sweet, lovely young man, and very thoughtful and kind. And he, for some reason, when he came out, he looked at me, and I looked at him, and from then on, he just sang to me the whole time, which was kind of odd, and I was very embarrassed.
Well, Johnny Cash pulled you out of the audience too, didn't he?
Yeah, as well. And after the intermission, and Elvis went back, and I guess they discussed this person over there. Right? Said, look at this girl on the.
I can't imagine any singers doing that.
So it was fun. And after the show, he came out from the stage down the stairs to the main auditorium, and he was signing autographs, and everyone rushed up, and they were pushing and shoving papers in his face, and I didn't go. I stayed in my seat. I don't know why. I just didn't feel like that was appropriate. I don't know.
Southern modesty, good manners, I guess.
Because he'd flirted with me from the stage, and I thought, oh, okay, I'm not going. So anyway, he called back, and they said, don't you want my autograph? And what's your name? And so I tried to make my voice sound high enough so that he could hear me. And he said, I said, yes, if you write something special. So he wrote, and he said, you have to come and get it, and come over and get it yourself. And so I did. I went over, and everyone was crowding around to see what he wrote. And I still have the note. I don't know how in the world I kept it all these years, but I still have it. And right now it's in my safety deposit box at the bank. And it just says, to Carol, how about a date? Answer yes or no, and Elvis Presley. And it was just an odd introduction anyway. But so I had to call my parents, and everyone crowded around and went to the phone with me in the lobby to call my parents. And so anyway, they gave me permission, and we went to a diner, a late night diner in town after the actually went outside. We first went into the auditorium and he introduced me to his parents and his cousin, and then we went to the car, and there were hundreds of people waiting.
Mm-hmm.
And so
you had a little procession following you, right?
Yes, we went to a diner in Florence, another town over, and there were about, 30, 40 cars behind us, and so we got to the diner, everyone crowded in, and there was a jukebox playing, and it was just a typical diner, and we found a booth, and he came in the booth on the same side as I was sitting, which I thought was nice. I mean, it was very different. And then other people came along and asked if they could sit there, which he said, sure, fine, put some money in the jukebox and we'll have a party.
Carolyn, I just want to mention that one of the things that's great about your book, How About a Date, Encounters with Young Elvis, is you really give a sense of what it was like growing up in a small town in the South in Alabama in 1955. And that's not the main purpose of the interview, but I would like to just emphasize that you really did set the tone and gave people a glimpse of life over there. But all right, go on about the date.
Yes, it was a different time, that's for sure. Think of it, I was 17 and I still had to call home and ask permission to go out.
Imagine that, yeah.
And I didn't really date that much. I mean, we'd go out in groups, but not out alone. And so we sat there for a while, and we talked about all kinds of things, and I remember he ordering a sandwich, and he told the waitress her hands were trembling, and she was taking the order, and he said, hurry up, Missy, I'm hungry, and tell the chef that he ordered a bacon sandwich with, I don't know what it was on it, but he was mainly bacon, and he said, and tell the cook to burn the bacon, and she laughed and said, oh, what? Burn the bacon? He said, yeah, I mean it, I like it that way. So we discussed,
That's the way his mom made it, right?
Yeah, you see, that part's in the book. I mean, my mother used to burn the toast every morning. I guess his mother burnt the bacon, and he had to I don't like burnt toast, by the way. But anyway, so we stayed for a while there, and then I had to be back, so we went back to the house, my house, and we didn't go in right away. We sat on the porch and we talked some more about all kinds of things about life and what he felt about his fame. I didn't know at the time, but this was a very important time in his career, because he was still with Sam Phillips, a small recording studio in Memphis, and at this time, Colonel Parker, who eventually, became his manager, agent, everything, was trying to get him away. And so on that night, that was when Colonel Parker took him away and became his agent. And so that was a big thing in his life at that point. And
having gone... Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, having gone, the timing was great. I'm sure he met lots of people lots of times, but you really met him just on the verge of stardom. And the book tells the story of how that affected your getting to know him, because you were suddenly incredibly busy. But the impression people get when they go to Graceland is that he was just a really warm, generous, kind person. Obviously, some things happened later in life, which, while he may have still been warm and kind, he faced some challenges that were different.
Exactly right, exactly.
And your book gives that impression of him, right? I mean, he just was a total gentleman. People wondering, he probably did this with 17-year-old girls all the time. What kind of guy was he? But you convey that he really was a gentleman, no?
Yes, he opened the door, the car door. He opened the door, and he was just very polite, very genuine. I was just blown away by the fact that he was such a very unassuming and gentle person, and I was impressed by his manners. He had very good manners and spoke well, and seemed very considerate of how I was feeling, whether I was nervous or comfortable or whatever. And it was just a very pleasant experience. We went back to my house, as I said, and sat, and I was worried because my father was I knew he would knock on the window any second, and I had to go in.
And you got to meet his parents. You got to meet his parents very early in the relationship, right?
Yeah, I met his parents. I met that same night that I met him. He took me over and introduced me to his parents. And his mother was, typically the doting mother. She was very happy to see him, and even though I'm sure she had only seen him before the show, probably, but I wondered why they were there, because I wondered why they didn't come along with us. But I guess he was underage. He had not turned 21 yet, and they were there to sign over his contract to Parker. So I didn't know that at the time. These are all things that were going on behind the scenes. But so looking back on it, it was a very important night. And then the next time, we made an agreement that night as we sat on the porch, looking up at the stars in Alabama, that we would meet again. And the next time he came to town, which I think that was scheduled to come in November, and that's when it happened. He got in touch then, and he came back on the 15th of November of that same year. And I remember him saying to me, "Now don't forget, don't buy a ticket. It's come to the side door and tell whoever answers that you have a date with me, and I'll be there. I'll be waiting." So that's what happened. And at first I knocked. I went there, and I bought a ticket anyway because I was afraid that somebody wouldn't come to the door. But I went to the door with some friends went with me, girlfriends, and knocked on the door. Nobody came. Finally, somebody came and said, what? And I said, well, I'd like to see Elvis. And he said, well, so would a lot of other people. And I said, yes, but he asked me to come. We have a date. So and he said, oh, okay, so we went in. And he brought a chair. He greeted me very nicely. He brought a chair. We kind of sat it in the wings, a folding chair. And so I got to watch from that point. That was the second date. And then at one point he came off and he broke his strings on his guitar, and we sat down in the little stairwell going down where it was dark, and he was trying to string his guitar, and he gave me the strings afterwards. And it was just a really, really fun time. And so the next time we went with Hank Thompson, I think, came along. He had someone that he was visiting in another town, a little town. It was Tri-Cities, and the other town was Tuscumbia. So we took him there with her, and he saw her to the door. We sat in the car, and it was just we got a chance to be alone and talk some more. And then afterwards, we took him back to his hotel and dropped him off. Actually, it was a motel. There was thinking there was one other hotel in town, and dropped him off and went to my house. And it's a long way around. And anyway, there's just any questions you want, I'd be happy to ask.
Yeah, no, I mean, the thing that's interesting to the audience is, I mean, you gave the impression, obviously we're hearing one side of the story, that he really liked you, and you guys really hit it off, the two of you really hit it off very well. But circumstances, not exactly bad circumstances from his case, sort of intervened and made it impossible for you to sort of continue with him. In other words, he became a superstar very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, there was no way. I mean, I'm sure that he became very, very big quickly, so he didn't have time for anything more than just probably did the same thing with me to a million other girls, because he didn't have time to spend any time with anyone. And so
it's kind of like tough for Elvis that way. I mean, you get a sense of loss because his personal life wasn't necessarily the easiest. I mean, from what I know about his marriage to Priscilla, it was sort of a fly-by-night, maybe it's time to get married type thing without passing any judgment of it.
Well, it's the price of fame. I mean, he rose so quickly, and with.
Well, one impression I got from the book, and obviously you were married, had children, lived next door to me for a while, but the impression I got subtly from your book is, maybe things would have been better for Elvis Presley had he married someone who was strong at a young age and had his back, because, let's face it, we know the story, people, especially Colonel Parker, took advantage of him, put him on it, made a lot of money for themselves. He did fine. Obviously, he became Elvis Presley, and who knows if he would have been as big if he had had a more stable life. But he dealt with demons and died 35 years ago at a fairly young age, and the last few years weren't necessarily easy on him either. When one reads the book, and you may not have intended to say so, and said, he might have been a little bit better off with someone like Carolyn Cahoon. He might have been a lot happier in the long run.
Yeah, I thought about that. I think probably everyone who had a close relationship, or even not, would say that he would have been better off, or might have been. But as you said, his life would have turned out differently, and he might not have been Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll. It might have, not been possible, because he would have had someone that was trying to take care of him and It probably couldn't.
He might. I mean,
anyway.
he's a pretty incredible talent. I mean, he probably still would have been pretty big. And he, this would have happened after he had already gone on to stardom. People would have still written the songs. I'm just speculating here, but someone would have said, enough. You have to look out for yourself. These people are taking advantage of you. You need the stable life. One of the theories is part of the reasons the drugs were so rough for him is it's really tough, especially back then when they didn't have Red Bull, for example, and Starbucks. It's very hard to move around night after night to perform.
He never took illegal drugs, I don't think. It was kind of like a
prescription.
In denial when you're taking something that a doctor prescribes. You think it's all right. At least I guess in the beginning he did, it just snowballed on him, and he started to, I guess, I didn't know any of that. I mean, that was after I tried not to even go there. I didn't even want to know about it. I avoided all of that because it was just such a shame to see him go down like he did finally. And he was such a beautiful man, and in body, physically, and such a voice. I don't think there's ever been anyone that could compare in the kind of work that he did. I mean, he was just fabulous, I thought.
Yeah.
And I was happy to have known him in the early years before the ravages of fame got to him. So I felt very privileged, and they're happy memories. I love them. And I just thought that the reason I wrote it really was just I thought I had a little slice of history that I was holding on to selfishly, and I thought people should hear everything about him because everything's been written about him, and I actually knew him. He wasn't just hearsay, and my story was truthful and honest, and I thought, well, his fans deserve to hear that little bit that they hadn't heard before.
Yeah,
that was my main motivation.
You're left after reading the book with not only a very good impression of you, but a very good impression of Elvis, other than saying, I wish he could have lasted a little bit longer and it had his last few years had been a little happier. Here's a question I have to wonder, as someone familiar with songs that were written for specific women, like, for example, big hits like My Sharona and Peggy Sue. Did you ever think, obviously there was Sweet Caroline, Neil Diamond, obviously not to you, and you pronounce it Carolyn, but did you ever think, it would have been nice to have an Elvis song written for me and using my name?
Oh, yeah, it would have been. I sort of fantasized about that. I thought when I'd hear it, I'd think, oh, boy, after I was taking my husband then to the Wallingford train station, the song would come on and I would think about it. And I got a lot of mileage out of that song, I tell you. Everywhere I go, not even in relation to Elvis at all, just to parties and convention things, and as the band would find out my name and they'd always play that song. Of course, I'm sure that's true of every Caroline.
Yeah. It's apparently the most played karaoke song there is, just about.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, something like that.
It was a magical time, and I'm glad that I had that opportunity. And I never told anybody much about it because I just had another life then, and so did he. And I didn't see any point in it. But I got, people would find out, and I would have to tell the story, and I got tired of telling it. So I thought, I better just write this down for posterity. My son is an avid Elvis fan.
You're talking about Rob, right?
Yeah, Rob. Rob's the oldest, by the way.
Oh, I know Rob. Rob's older than Christy?
Yeah, he's the oldest. Christy's the middle, and then
that's right. I knew that.
I knew that. But anyway, I just remember Rob sitting there watching. He was always there when. So now he helped me research and he helped me do this. But not that it's a big book; it requires a lot. But for someone who's not really, educated to write. A journalist or whatever, book writer, I'm not, and he kept me on track and helped me research date timelines and things like that. So,
you know what? I want to emphasize to people who may buy the book, which again is How About a Date Encounters with the Young Elvis, and I'm talking with Carolyn Cahoon-Hauser, that it's a short read. I mean, you get a lot out of it. It sticks with you. I read it 7 months ago, and it all stuck with me. It's about 100 pages. So if you're at if it's summer, you're at the beach, and you want something to read in an afternoon or maybe over a couple hours, perfect book for it. And we're talking because this Thursday, August 16th, 2012, is the 35th anniversary of Elvis's death, and because Elvis was so big, we remember a 35th anniversary like that. And Carolyn, not to be morbid, but I'd like to, you do write about about this in the book. Tell us the circumstances about how you found out about his death and, your sadness after that.
Well, I found out actually from my son Rob. He was at home, I guess. I was out and doing errands or at the swimming team club or whatever, and I came home and Rob met me at the door and told me. It was quite a shock. I felt great sadness. I wanted to see him again, and I tried to. When he came to Brandywine, he came close to our home, as you know, and but circumstances were such that I couldn't go. So I never really got to see him again. And I was close many times, but never did. And I was very saddened, as the whole world was. And it's too bad that he had to go such an early age when he was still so young. And
yeah. Oh, you know what? I don't want to end on a sad note. Let me just ask you something I'm curious about. Do you have a favorite Elvis song, or two or three? And if so, what are they?
Yeah, I like Memories, because that's how I think of him. I mean, he's just a memory, and I like just so many. Are You Lonesome Tonight? I don't really have. I think Memories is probably one of my favorites.
Understandable. Well, any final thoughts? As we remember,
Caroline.
Sweet Caroline. Well, did he ever do a version of that?
Yes, he did.
Oh,
yeah.
I didn't know that. I just figured it was a Neil Diamond song. I didn't even know he did a version of Sweet Caroline.
No, that's why. That's how I used to kind of fantasize about it. Maybe he thought of me when he was singing that.
Oh, well, you should have told him to pronounce your name correctly, but I guess you weren't talking that much at this point.
When I was young, I was Carol, because my mother was Caroline. So, but I pronounced it Caroline. He didn't pronounce. He was very southern drawl. He said Caroline. He pronounced it differently, but at least he called me Caroline and not Carol. Oh, I didn't like that anymore.
Oh, sorry. I thought it was pronounced Carolyn, not Caroline. My dad, with his Philly accent, must have mispronounced it through the years, and I was confused.
Yeah.
He's got a big Philly accent.
I just didn't use it when I was young because it was my mother's, and so I got the short name.
All right. Any final thoughts as we conclude here?
Well, I just recommend that if anybody is an Elvis fan or not would enjoy this story, because it's a true story, and it's very factual, and it was written with love and respect for a very special person. And I just wanted everyone to know that all the stories people heard about Elvis and his years of not having such a good name, he was a very, very dear and sweet person, and I think anyone would have liked him a lot. Good personality, funny, just a great guy.
Well, on that note, I've been talking to Caroline, not Carolyn, Cahoon-Hauser. It's about the 35th anniversary of the passing of Elvis Presley, and her book is How About a Date? Encounters with the Young Elvis. It can be found at Amazon and on the Facebook page that is How About a Date, with no A in about. Carolyn, thanks for your time today.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you very much.